Okay, guys, so the first thing we're going to do is open up our template. So you downloaded your template from the Google Doc, and you are going to just double click to open it, and it will open directly into Photoshop. Okay, and then what you'll see is these diagonal lines as well as a vertical and horizontal line. Now, the diagonal lines are over here in this layer, okay? They are supposed to be like guides for you to mark your spacing. Photoshop allows you to make horizontal and vertical guides, so these are built in and will never be seen once you save and download your image. But these diagonal guides will need to be turned off and deleted when you save your final project. So we will come back to this step later on. All right, so here's our template. It is a square. Okay, and we are going to get started by taking our photo and bringing it into Photoshop. So you're going to go ahead, I'm going to make my Photoshop a little bigger, and I'm going to go to my Finder, and I'm going to grab my picture, so my selfie. This is me with some goats over the summer. All right, so there's my picture. Now, if your picture happened to be really big or really small, you might have to do some size adjustments. In fact, you're going to have to do some size adjustments. The only place that you are going to be putting your photo is in this upper right quadrant. So say like if this was a clock, it would be between about 12 and 2 o'clock. That's where their photo is going to go. So I need to be able to fill that pie piece with my photo. And I want the goat to be included. And I want to be able to see where my lines are. So I'm actually going to go, I'm going to click enter, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to drag my photo down, okay? Now I'm going to click on my photo again in the layer, and I'm going to go ahead and grab this guy again. So if you're looking at this guy, okay, so I want to kind of resize, so I can go ahead and click the corners. I don't want to resize this way and hold down shift, because watch what happens. It gets spread out, right? I want to keep it proportional. So any of your boxes right now are going to keep it proportional. That's how this version of Photoshop was designed. You might be used to Photoshop Elements where you didn't have to hold down shift and it would stretch automatically, but we actually don't want that to happen anyways, so it's all fine. Now, right now, I have this little chunk here that I need to fill, so I'm going to pull it down this way and then stretch, but now my head's cut off. So I have to do a little bit of compromising and probably say I'm only going to get part of my goat and part of my own face in. And that's okay. The whole point of this is to make a cool kaleidoscope and maybe not see your face in the long run. I'm going to come back this way and shrink down. But I want to make sure I don't have a hole in the middle. So this might take you a little while to like establish kind of where you want your picture to be and what you want filled in that picture. All right, I think this is what I'm going to do. I can do Command minus to zoom out. All right, I think I've got enough goat and enough me. I could maybe turn it a little bit. All right, I feel pretty good about this. All right, so my photo is in the right spot, so I'm going to hit return. Okay, so the next step is going to be to cut my photo. Before I do that, I need to make sure that I convert this photo to an editable image. Whoops, sorry, cancel. You're going to control click or right click, and you are going to say rasterize layer. And that's just going to take that little bubble image down, and it just means it's a little bit more editable than it was, okay? All right, so I'm going to go over to my tools, and I am looking for my line, my selection tool that's going to make lines. So right now, the default is on the lasso. I want to go to the polygonal lasso, okay? So this is going to allow me to select perfect lines and be able to trace my pie piece. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, but not too far. And I am going to click up here at the top. I want you to start and follow exactly what I'm doing. Don't start anywhere else. It just makes it easier to follow along. And this can be a tricky step. So I'm going to click directly on that vertical line, okay? And then I'm going to pull down and it should be a straight line, but if you want to make sure it is, you can hit shift. But we're going to click directly in the center. Make sure you don't shortchange yourself. Click again. And if you notice, it's going to drag that line. Now, this time when I pull off the diagonal, I'm going to make sure it's right on the money, and I'm going to pull it past the edge. Then when I pull it over here, I want to show you. Look, nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens. Look, there's a circle. We want that circle. That means we've completed the circuit, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead and click. And now what you should see is this kind of light flashing line. It's going to be kind of subtle. Okay, and look what happens when I hit delete. Is that what we wanted to happen? No, I'm gonna hit Command Z, I'm gonna undo. I wanna go to select inverse, okay? So you're gonna go to select inverse, and that's going to select everything but the pie piece now. So now you should see the flashing lights around the edges, and now delete, and there's my pie piece. So this is where you wanna kind of pause and ask yourself, is this what I want to duplicate and rotate throughout my kaleidoscope? If it is, fantastic. If it's not, you're gonna wanna Command Z, and then Command Z a couple more times and readjust your photo, or maybe take a new photo. That's completely up to you, okay? So once you are happy with that, you can hit Command D on your keyboard, and that will make all the flashing stop, or you can just hit the select tool, okay, and it will go away. All right, so now we have our pie piece. So we need to duplicate it. So we're gonna go over here into our layers box, okay, and we are going to right click or control click, and we are going to say duplicate layer. Okay, so you have all these options. A lot of them aren't on right now, but we're going to duplicate layer, and we're just going to say okay. So now if you look in your layers box, you have 2 pie pieces, right? 1, 2. So we're going to take that pie piece and we want to flip it. We're going to flip it over this vertical plane. So we're going to go to image, rotate, and we're going to go to, hang on a second. I'm sorry, we're going to go to edit transform. I'm so used to doing this in Photoshop Elements. In Photoshop 2021, it's in a different spot. So we're actually going to go to edit. So not image, we're going to go to edit, and we're going to go to transform, and we're going to go flip horizontal. Okay. Flip horizontal, and it's going to flip over that vertical plane horizontally. And so now you should see that it switched directions, and now I can click and drag it into place. Now this is where I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to use my mouse carefully to line up my image. Now it will naturally sort of snap into place, but when in doubt, turn off your top layer, which is your diagonals, just so you can see a little bit more, and make sure that everything is lined up. So I like to go down the seam and just make sure everything is perfectly symmetrical. And there's the goat's nose and his eyes. Looks good to me. All right, so I can turn these back on. So we are basically going to repeat these steps over and over and over. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we want to make our job easier. Instead of flipping just this pie piece and duplicating it, we're going to join these 2 together. So I'm going to hold down shift. Okay, so I click on one layer, hold down shift, click on the other layer. So now I have 2 layers joined, and I'm going to right click again. And this time I'm going to say merge layers. Make sure you don't do merge visible, it's merge layers. Okay, so I'm going to merge them. So now they are one piece. Okay, they are one piece all together. You can see it in the layers box. Now we're going to repeat all of our steps. We are going to duplicate layer. We're going to say okay. The only difference is we are going to rotate instead of flip this time. So we're going to go over to edit again. We're going to go to transform, and we are going to rotate, and you can choose clockwise or counterclockwise. It's up to you. So now we take that layer and we drag it into place. So we zoom in and we drag it into place. Now I'm pretty sure I am off a little bit. I am. So I'm going to I turned off my diagonals, and I am going to use my keyboard to nudge together. And there we go. I think I'm going to just double check here. All right, I think that's correct now. So I'm going to look. Oh my goodness, I gave myself 2 noses. That's really creepy. And we're going to go from there. And again, if you hate it, like you hate the double nose thing, this would be your chance to say, I'm going to start over, because it doesn't take that long to start this step. All right, so I'm going to turn my diagonals back on. Everything looks good. So now I have, he reminds me of the Goonies character. What is that guy's name? I don't remember. All right, so I selected both layers. So I'm going to show you how to do that again. I grab one layer, hold down Shift on my keyboard, click the other layer, and then I control click or right click, and I'm going to merge layers. So now this is all one piece. There's really no going back. Now I'm going to duplicate that layer, say okay. So now I have 2, and now I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Rotate 180, because I want it to flip to the other side. And there it is. So now I can drag this whole half, and I'm going to zoom in, turn off my diagonals, and I'm going to bring it all together. All right. Now, what does happen? Do you see these really light, faint lines? That can happen sometimes. It's no big deal. It just means there's still a slight, like 1 pixel gap between the images. But quite frankly, no one will ever know when it's that small. But if it's really apparent, then you need to go back. Then something went wrong. All right, I think that's as close as we are going to get. All right, so this is it. This is step 1. So again, we can now leave these blue lines off. If you want, you can just delete them by hitting the unlocking first and then hitting the trash can. It's completely up to you. This vertical line, this horizontal line, they will stay put unless you go to View, and you can turn off your guides by saying Clear Guides. And there they go. They go away. So here is our project. My Goonie self with the goat, and the next step will be to edit the color.